I need this for support because I can't sometimes believe how in a short time my dreams are coming true to be a painter. And I remember as a little girl, I wanted to be a painter. And, my dad, one of the things he said, yes, you can be a painter, but don't study painting because then you'll meet a painter and the two of you will be very poor. So he was a supporter, but not really. But then he was at the end. He was truly a supporter. But there was a 2020, which was a very significant year for all of us because of COVID. My dad died. He died, and all my priorities changed, and I decided I didn't want to go back to the corporate world where I had spent over 25 years climbing that ladder and contributing in that space and being the provider of my little family, 3 boys and I. And David here, he knew me at that time, and I told him, I'm going to go home to my house in Colorado Springs, and I'm going to paint. And he's like, excuse me, how can you do that? That's not financially really sound. And I'm like, I have to do that. I must. And I need to grieve and heal for my dad's passing, be at arm's length for my mom who lives in Parker, and just have a change, a big change. And when I did that, I had a little space in back of the garage of my house transformed into my painting area because I knew I had to paint. Painting was the medicine for me to heal. So I painted there, and I would listen to NPR and kind of just think of other things that the world was encountering and dealing with. And there was an article about the children, that they were having a very hard time because of isolation, because of online learning, and it was very difficult, and experts thought that the generations were going to be impacted in the business world and all over because of this one factor, and that we needed to pay attention to that because as they grew up, they weren't going to be as traditionally children were. And so my light bulb went off, and I can help with that. I can't get out of the studio. I'm painting all the time in there. And I have some neighbors here that probably say, yeah, she's gone for months and she's probably back there. But, and so that's when I became an art teacher at St. Mary's. And it was in 2021. It's a Catholic high school here in town. And I remember the kids in my art room, they would be painting or drawing, concentrating on their project. And sometimes they would come up and they would say, Miss Weston, guess what? My grandpa died and I didn't get to say goodbye. Totally spot on fact. And and then another one on the other side would say, yeah, my uncle and cousins died too, and I didn't get to see. So it was, no matter how many times you hear that time came and went and we survived, there is a after echo of it. And so after 2 years at St. Mary's, I became the chair of the fine arts department there, and I was so proud of my kids. I thought they were the best artists, and I asked Abby, can you host them in your gallery and tell them about being a gallerist and a business person in art? And she did. She opened the gallery just for them one morning, and they all came and they listened to her, and then they wrote her the most beautiful thank you letters. And she was a role model in terms of being a woman leader, a most proactive community advocate via the arts for the community at large. So whenever Abby asks me something, I can contribute a painting here, I can contribute a painting there. And so I'm very loyal to her and her support of me, and I support her in any way I can. So that's how community is built, you know, little by little, with genuine emotions and genuine commitments from the heart. And then as my style has grown since then, my commitment to that is reflected in the paintings. My paintings, you cannot, you know, maybe you say, oh, maybe I've seen a banister like that, but they're all stories from the heart about us today. This one is about we are so busy and so lacking romance and love or being examples of love in our daily walk that this girls, and I've painted a couple and they're living in other people's houses now, but the fact that you're floating in a fantasy world and reading something, but we don't know, you have to imagine what she's reading, but it could be something very romantic, very fantasy based, and don't we need moments like that in today's life? I think technology was meant to be something that helped us make life easier and simpler, but we have more work because of it, and we're stretched more than we thought imaginable some days. We're writing papers, we're reviewing other people's papers, we're doing all these things that before we would take a week to do, now we have to do it in 2 hours because of technology. So I think we're all really stretched. So I just came home one day and the blue background emerged. And then the more I looked at it, she came forward. She emerged from the blue. And I have pictures to show you. The first step was just a blue surface, all the flowers, and then she just sort of just emerged from there. But it's inspired about that we need. So her title is Petals of Love, Echoes of Petals of Love in Ultramarine Blue, which is this color, which I used straight from, I didn't mix it. I toned it down with white, but ultramarine blue is a color that I think you see a lot. So this one is, this is a collection of 7 paintings. This is the last painting I painted because I needed to bring the paintings to Abby. She had me on a deadline this summer, and it worked. So talking about what I just said about things of the heart, don't we all have friendships that we never forgot? So this is my sorority sister and I. She was a little older than I. I was a freshman. She was a junior, senior in college. We're tryouts, and she studied advertising and public relations and things like that. And I was painting and designing, but we were friends from the first time we saw each other. But all her projects had an art director. It was a freshman girl. She wouldn't turn in anything without me approving it, you know. And then we never stopped talking. And then the years passed, and she became a very successful public relations person. She had the Denver Post account, for example, and she lived in Alaska. And the first thing she did, hey, Rosario, I need you in a painting, in a commercial. And there's a commercial about the Denver Post, me painting up in Grand Junction, a big painting. So we always were each other's loyal friend, and loyal because of who we were, pure and simple. And And then one day, talking on the phone, she noticed I was very sad. I wasn't that spunky person that she knew. And she said, we need to fix this. So to my office, she sent tickets to go to Hawaii to her condo. And she said, Rosie, she's the only one that can tell me that. She said, we need to talk. So let's just put a date and we'll go. And that's, we were talking and talking, and the moons are symbolic of the conversation, some of those very important conversations that we have in life. I believe they stay in the universe. They just float around. They're there somewhere. And depending on your faith, you know, what you believe in, maybe angels listen in, maybe the universe by itself just gets together and responds. But those really heart-to-heart conversations are still floating around, and they don't disappear. They're important points that two humans make entrusted in one another. So one night in Hawaii, we just did that, you know? and yeah, that's Connie and that's me. I was always more hippie-like, more, you know, just easygoing. And after that trip, yeah, I became a single mom, and I went to HR, got my master's in HR, and was very fortunate to have very important employers employ me. And I spent 25 years there after as director level, multinational companies. But it was a completely different life than I have here. I traveled a lot. I spent 2 years in Mexico City, also learning about the culture, the people, but from Mexico City, there every day. And I'm happy to tell you they're the most beautiful people in the world. They are generous, very friendly, and they don't have a mean cell in their bodies. I was there with my youngest boy, Eddie, who is now a successful chef in Las Vegas. So you guys don't see him very often, but nothing bad ever happened to us. You know, people say, you lived in Mexico City by yourself with your little boy. Didn't you get mugged? Didn't you get robbed? Didn't you get... No, never. 2 years. 2 years. So we need to just do that, you know, just go and live there. So this is more recent. The inspiration is more recent. It's about being an educator and being concerned about the development of young human beings. And about, I'm going to say 10 years ago, I heard commentary that boys in particular were feeling a little bit lost in their developmental years because they didn't have role models. That all the attention was on girls, STEM programs, engineering programs, everything was geared to girls, and that boys needed role models. So here's a boy, and he's just reflecting on his nature, nature's around him, embracing him, and the sky is fragmented because there's so many messages. Even the moon is fragmented, and that's it. That's all that's about. It's about how I felt compassion for boys who felt that way. You know, because it's not good, not a good thing. And on this wall, when I worked at St. Mary's, the director of music, drama, and theater, very talented person in my team, is that one. So when the painting was in the newspaper, he called me and said, "Sorry, I think one of your paintings looks like me." And I just said, "What? Yes, it's you." But it's because he grew up in Grand Junction, and he, one day after school, we just talked about each other's lives and our journeys. And he had like a real bad time with people he let in his heart. So those are the pink flowers. They're there, they don't disappear, but they weren't proud of them because they had a 20-year relationship. That's longer than so many people. And I remember the Pope blessing them, and I ran into his room and said, look, the Pope, look what he said, things are getting better for you and your partner. But that's what happened. He finally found his match, and he was embraced forever because of that. But you know, we meet people and they have amazing lives behind them. And we never know until we have those conversations and we share openly and truthfully. So that's what that painting is about. And so that's why it's entitled My Friend from Grand Junction. And that's him. This one is The Love Within, because a lot of people tell me, oh, you paint indigenous people, ethnic people so much. Yeah, I do, because the love for their colors, for their dress, for their culture is within. And that's why they're so beautiful. And that's then when I want to paint them. So the love within is in her, not in the colors, not in the necklace, not in the hairstyle in her braid. The love is within her and her culture and who she is. So that's a little portrait. And this, when I was a teenager, I lived in Dominican Republic, so that had a lot of influence in me. The colors, the way when you live in Dominican Republic and the Caribbean, time has another set of meaning, you know. So sometimes you drive to school in the morning at 7 in the morning and you see the girl, and then you come back at 4 and she's still there. You know, she's just slow, relaxing days. And so I was in such a crunch this summer that I thought I must paint that concept of color, beauty, but slow down a little bit, you know. And this one's inspired by a trip my son Philip invited me to go to Santa Fe and Taos to look at galleries a couple summers ago. And I sat by the car window, and all I could capture is these mountains. So everything else I made up, and then I had to put some cowboys or cowgirls, but they're not like the typical Western dress or attire, because I wanted to put a little bit of Chile in there. And so in Chile, you know, where people live out in the countryside, you always have mountains because we have the Andes and we have snow and we have very similar landscapes. But we just go in our horses to check out the property, you know, we just go and check it out. But we don't have the same hats or the same boots or anything. So those are Chilean people checking out the Taos, New Mexico. So that's just like, I had to put something on me. That's so you guys know that. How come they don't have cowboy hats and all that? Because they're Chilean, you know. So that's a collection. That's it. 7 paintings. They're all from the heart. They're all my colors. People always comment, oh, I love the color usage. The color usage comes also from the heart. I really start with talking about your process. It could be a statement, like the conversation my friend and I had. It could be maybe a memory. It could be, but it has to be human. It has a human interaction, triggers, and it lives with me, it lives with me, it lives with me. And then, bam, the colors are spontaneous, and something in me just tells me, yeah, leave that alone. It's done. And somebody asked me once, how do you know the painting is done? I said, I never know. The painting tells me, right? The painting tells me, I'm done. Go away, go do something else. And so that's about the color. I paint mainly in acrylics because I started in university with oils, but I was expecting Philip suddenly. And I was friends with a graduate level painting student, and she told me, stop painting oils because you're pregnant now. And the scientists don't understand the fumes and how it impacts the baby. So switched to acrylics, and I did that. Philip, it's okay. So are the paintings. So I just stayed with the acrylic. And nowadays, acrylic has really made huge leaps and bounds in terms of chemistry. And you can buy retardants and gels and things like that that help you create the same sensations that oil would on a canvas. Like retardants, or texture, or just like oils, but they dry quicker. You can manipulate them more if you learn how to do that. So they're all acrylics. I have a couple of oils in the studio that I saved from college. That's it. Art is the thing that washes away the dust in your soul that every day puts there. So yeah, art has done that for me. Not that I know Picasso or had a conversation with him, but when I read that quote, I said, yeah, it's true for me, and so I'll share it with my friends. Yeah, yeah, yeah.